Welcome to the channel. My name is Michael CBC and it's great to have you here with me. In this video, we're doing the story of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. If you're new around these parts, please consider subscribing to the channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into it. Robert Sobukwe was one of South Africa's greatest heroes of the struggle for freedom, human rights, and non-racialism. An academic, lawyer, founder of the Pan-Africanist Congress, and one of the first to propose a non-racial rather than multiracial future, Sobukwe was seen as even more dangerous to the apartheid state than African National Congress leaders such as Nelson Mandela. In 1960, as president of the newly formed PAC, Sobukwe was keen organizing protests against the pass laws. The Dom Pass, literally Dam Pass, required all black South Africans to carry documents, allowing them to pass into urban areas. In the late 1950s, the pass laws had been extended to include black women, prompting both the ANC and the PAC to mount nationwide civil disobedience campaigns. Hubert and Angelina Sobukwe welcomed Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe into the world on December 5, 1924, in Graaff-Reinet, Cape Province. Out of 5 boys and 1 girl, he was the youngest. His mother was a housekeeper and a cook at a nearby hospital, while his father was a municipal laborer and a part-time woodcutter. Sobukwe's older brother introduced him to literature at a young age. He received his early education at a Graaff-Reinet mission school. He enrolled in a 2-year primary teacher's training course after finishing Standard 6. However, he was not hired as a teacher. After that, he returned to high school and enrolled at the Hilltown Institute, where he finished his matriculation and junior certificate after 6 years of study with financial aid from the school's principal, George Carley. In 1943, Sobukwe's education was momentarily halted when he was confined to a hospital due to tuberculosis. He was able to enroll in Fort Hare University for post-secondary education in 1947 after receiving a bursary from the Department of Education and an additional loan from the Bantu Welfare Trust. Sobukwe enrolled in a BA program with English, Xhosa, and Native Administration as his majors. His intense passion for literature persisted, with a particular emphasis on poetry and drama. Sobukwe stated that he had little interest in politics before moving to Fort Hare. His interest in politics was sparked by his study of Native Administration. Cecil Nhloko, an All-African Convention supporter and one of his professors, had a significant impact on this new emphasis. Generations of young black South Africans and black students from other African nations were introduced to politics at Fort Hare. Sobukwe became more politically engaged as a result of these factors. Sobukwe and 3 of his friends started the Daily Beware in 1948. Non-collaboration and criticism of Native Representative Council and Native Advisory Boards were among the topics covered in the study. In the same year, Sobukwe became a member of the African National Congress Youth League, which was founded on campus by Godfrey Pitje, a lecturer in the Department of African Studies, who went on to become the league's president. They believed that the African National Congress had been tainted by its continued involvement in the Native Representative Council and the local advisory boards. Sobukwe and his classmates were at first dubious about the African National Congress Youth League. Sobukwe demonstrated his ability to speak convincingly when he was chosen president of the Fort Hare Student Representative Council in 1949. He became well known among his peers after giving a speech in October 1949 as the SRC's departing president. Pitje chose him to be the ANC Youth League's national secretary in December. He started to take an Africanist stance within the ANC during this time after being influenced by Anton Lambete's ideas. Veronica Mathe was a nurse in training at Alice Hospital when Sobukwe first met her in 1949. In 1950, the couple tied the knot. Sobukwe began teaching history, English, and geography at the Andrel Secondary School in Standerton in 1950. He lost his teaching job in 1952 after endorsing the Defiance campaign. However, he was quickly reinstated after his dismissal. Despite serving as the NC Standerton branch secretary from 1950 to 1954, Sobukwe was not actively involved in the organization's core operations. After relocating to Johannesburg in 1954, Sobukwe worked as an African Studies instructor at the University of the Witwatersrand, earning him the moniker The Prof. He joined the ANC branch after relocating to Mufolo, Soweto. After taking over as the editor of The Africanist in 1957, Sobukwe quickly started criticizing the ANC for letting liberal left multiracials control the party. Sobukwe finished his honours dissertation, a collection of Xhosa riddles, at Wits in 1958.
Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, who is almost written out of the history of South Africa. Now, I'd like to ask you, what has happened to the PAC and that element of political thinking within South Africa now?
Yeah, you are quite right. Robert Sobukwe was on Robben Island. He was held there for 6 years, and he was the only prisoner in the world who was held on Robben Island as a political prisoner due to a law passed in Parliament just for him.
Yeah.
And it's known as the Sobukwe Clause. And every year they had to renew his detention, and they had a very good reason, because they compared him to the late Albert Luthuli, Chief Albert Luthuli, and said, why couldn't you just ban Sobukwe but release him from Robben Island? And the then Minister of Justice said, it's like comparing a heavyweight boxer with a flyweight boxer. Sobukwe had a lot of clout, and his most important clout was intellectual.
In terms of politics, Sobukwe was a solid Africanist who thought that black South Africans should be in charge of the country's future. Due to his disapproval of the NC's multiracial strategy, Sobukwe played a key role in the 1958 Africanist split from the ANC that resulted in the formation of the Pan-Africanist Congress. He said, in 1955, the Kliptown Charter was adopted, which according to us is a irreconcilable conflict with the 1949 program, seeing that it claims land is no longer African, but is auctioned for sale to all who live in this country. We have come to the parting of the ways, and we are here and now giving notice that we are disassociating ourselves from the ANC, as it is constituted at present in the Transvaal. Sobukwe was unanimously chosen as the PAC's first president during the organization's first Congress, which took place in Orlando in April 1959. Sobukwe quickly became recognized as a natural leader and was able to mobilize support for the PAC thanks to his eloquent public speaking, intelligence, and dedication to his cause. An excerpt from Sobukwe's 1959 inaugural speech at the PAC launch demonstrates his rejection of multiracialism in favor of non-racialism. The PAC declared that it intended to launch a campaign against the pass laws with the goal of freeing South Africa by 1963, just 1 week after the ANC started its anti-pass campaign in December 1959. In a letter dated March 16, 1960, Sobukwe informed Major General Rade Meyer, the Commissioner of Police, that the PAC would begin a 5-day non-violent, disciplined, and continuous protest campaign against pass laws on March 21st. When the PAC's anti-pass campaign began on March 21, 1960, Sobukwe resigned from his position as lecturer at the University of Witwatersrand. He left his Mufolo house after making last-minute plans for his family's protection. With the intention of inspiring other black South Africans, he planned to surrender himself for arrest at the Orlando police station. Small groups of men from nearby communities, including Pefeni, Dube, and Orlando West, joined him on the 8-kilometer trip to the police station. As the small crowd approached the police station, most of the marchers, including Sobukwe, were arrested and charged with sedition. When an estimated group of 5,000 marchers reached Sharpeville police station, the police opened fire, killing 69 and injuring 180 others in what became known as the Sharpeville Massacre. An order was issued on 25 March 1960 for the banishment of Sobukwe to the Driefontein Native Trust Farm, Vryburg District, Northern Cape. At the time, Sobukwe was living in Mufolo Bantu Township, Johannesburg, Transvaal. The documentation on the banishment noted that Sobukwe and Lebalo had both been arrested and were awaiting trial, but it was necessary to have a banishment order in hand just in case they are released. Sobukwe never spent time in banishment as he was sentenced to imprisonment for incitement. On May 4, 1960, Sobukwe was sentenced to 3 years in prison for inciting Africans to demand the repeal of the pass laws. He refused to appeal against the sentence, as well as the aid of an attorney, on the grounds that the court had no jurisdiction over him, as it could not be considered either a court of law or a court of justice. At the end of his 3-year sentence on May 3, 1963, Parliament enacted a General Law Amendment Act. The act included what was termed the Sobukwe Clause, which empowered the Minister of Justice to prolong the detention of any political prisoner indefinitely. Subsequently, Sobukwe was moved to Robben Island, where he remained for an additional 6 years. The clause was never used to detain anyone else. The Sobukwe Clause was renewed every year. When it was due to expire on 30 June 1965, the government renewed it. While on Robben Island, Sobukwe was kept in solitary confinement. His living quarters were separate from the main prison and he had no contact with any other prisoners. He was, however, allowed access to books and civilian clothes. As a result, Sobukwe spent much of his time studying and he obtained a degree in economics from the University of London. In 1964, Sobukwe was offered a job by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Montgomery Fellowship for Foreign Aid in the U.S. He applied to leave the country with his family to take up employment, but was denied permission by the Minister of Justice, John Vorster. Sobukwe was released from prison in May 1969 and was banished to Kimberley, where he was joined by his family. However, he remained under 12-hour house arrest, and his banning order prohibited him from participating in any political activity. In 1970, Sobukwe successfully applied for a teaching post at the University of Wisconsin in the U.S., but the apartheid government refused his request for a passport, despite assurances that he would be given a visa by the U.S. government. When he applied to leave South Africa permanently together with his family in 1971, the South African government again refused to give him permission. While the restrictions kept him under house arrest and denied him permission to leave South Africa, he was permitted to attend family gatherings outside Kimberley. For instance, in July 1973, Sobukwe was granted permission to leave Kimberley to visit his son Dalinyebo, who had been hospitalized in Johannesburg. In June 1974, Sobukwe spent 3 days in Johannesburg visiting his wife, who underwent an operation at a hospital in Johannesburg. Finally, in 1975, Sobukwe's mother died and he applied to the Chief Magistrate of Kimberley for a permit to leave the town in order to attend the funeral. He was granted permission on condition that he report to the police station upon arrival and departure, and that he return to Kimberley by midnight on Friday 9 May 1975, a day after the funeral. Sobukwe began studying law while he was under house arrest. He completed his articles in Kimberley and established his own law firm in 1975. The government's Department of Justice initially denied him permission to enter the courts, but reversed the decision and withdrew the prohibition after the government relaxed the clause that banned Sobukwe from entering a court of law, except as an accused or as a witness. However, newspapers were not allowed to quote him when he argued in court. Shortly after opening his law practice, Sobukwe fell ill. In July 1977, he applied for permission to go for medical treatment in Johannesburg. Benjamin Pogrand, a close family friend, intervened, and on 9 September, Sobukwe was allowed to leave Kimberley for Johannesburg under strict conditions. He was diagnosed with lung cancer, and his condition was deemed serious. Consequently, Sobukwe was transferred to Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town. While he was in the hospital, the security branch instructed the medical staff not to permit any visitors to visit him except his family. Sobukwe's wife applied for permission from the Cape Magistrate for him to stay with a family friend, Bishop Pat Matalengwe. After deliberate delays by the government, on 14 October, he was temporarily discharged and Bishop Matolengwe took him from the hospital. Sobukwe was sent back to Kimberley, from where he was due to travel back to Cape Town for another round of treatment. Each time he left Kimberley, he had to report to the police station, which he also had to do when he arrived at or left Cape Town. The government deliberately made it harder for Sobukwe to receive treatment by insisting that he should comply with the conditions of his restrictions, despite his evidently failing health. On 27 February 1978, Sobukwe died from lung complications at Kimberley General Hospital. His funeral was held on 11 March 1978 and he was buried in Graaff-Reinet. Today, he remains a celebrated political figure in the struggle for a democratic South Africa.